Hi, do you know why we should engage with IEEE Young Professionals early in our career? Well, what is IEEE Young Professionals and how can it help us? IEEE Young Professionals is an international community of enthusiastic, dynamic, and innovative members and volunteers. Any IEEE member can be a young professional, and any member who received their first professional degree within the last 15 years is automatically considered a YP. Now, IEEE Young Professionals is bigger than you may think. It is one community in 10 regions across 183 affinity groups and more than 120,000 members around the world. So, why should we engage with IEEE Young Professionals, you ask? It is a place to connect and network with other professionals, enrich our career and personal lives, and participate in social events and activities. We can participate in many professional networks such as IEEE Collaboratech, IEEE email account via Google Apps, and take part in local meetings and online activities such as conferences and job fairs. We can also access the IEEE Center for Leadership Excellence for on-demand content. This really is an excellent resource to equip us with professional development skills. The benefits go on and on, particularly for young professionals early in our career as well as students. We can enhance our technical skills by accessing eBook Classics, IEEE Member Digital Library, Spectrum and Potential Magazine, IEEE Explore, conferences, and more. Look, the bottom line is this. We can participate in exciting local events and global webinars for topics such as assessing emotional intelligence, fundamentals for leadership and ethics, heroes networking for engineers, survival guide for scientific writing, conflict management, negotiation tactic, and others. For all these great reasons, engaging with IEEE Young Professionals may be one of the best decisions that we can make in our personal lives and professional career development. That is why we should engage with IEEE Young Professionals.
Good afternoon, good evening, or perhaps good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to IEEE Young Professionals Malaysia webinar on how to power the planet with sustainable energy by Dr. Shay Bahramirad. First of all, I would like to thank all participants for joining our webinar today. I am Dr. Nadia Hussaini, the Vice Chair of IEEE Young Professionals and your moderator for today's webinar. This event is organized by IEEE Young Professionals Malaysia and is in collaboration with IEEE Power and Energy Society Young Professionals and also with IEEE Power and Energy Society Women in Power Region 9. This event is broadcasted live on IEEE YP Malaysia YouTube channel and Facebook platforms. If you have any questions regarding the discussed topic, you can type in your questions in the YouTube chat box or in the Facebook comments. Our team will take note of your question. I would like to remind the audience to fill in the attendance link provided towards the end of this webinar. This link will be provided in the YouTube chat box and Facebook comment for your certificate of participation. Now, before we start our webinar, let me welcome Dr. Harun, the Chair of IEEE Young Professionals Malaysia, to welcome our esteemed speaker and give his opening remarks. Welcome, Dr. Harun.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nadia, for a very warm welcome. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Assalamu alaikum, and good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whichever region you are all coming from. Once again, I'm happy to see you all. A lot of familiar faces who have been joining our previous webinars as well. So once again, welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining, coming all the way for this webinar. So this time we have come across with slightly different thing. In the past, you have been seeing us with professional activities like upskilling and leadership skills and so on. This time we have come up with a technical talk. So in this technical talk, we have today invited our speaker all the way coming from US, Dr. Shay Bahramirad. She will be talking about sustainable energy. You will be hearing her later on. She's the Vice President of Climate and Resilience at Quanta Technology. So I hope all of you will be here to hear Dr. Shay and to learn technical things from her on the sustainable technology so that you know about what is happening around the world as well about climate change challenges and renewable energy perspective, and do ask all your questions. Take advantage of Dr. Shay's presence over here. Feel this not like a classroom environment, okay, where you are just listening the lecture. The purpose that I invited Dr. Shay and we came up at the YouTube live so that you can ask her any question, feel free. And just one thing very important to let you know, Dr. Shay is joining us all the way from US and it's midnight there. So if I'm not mistaken, it's 2:07 a.m. right now. So you should take advantage of this and must give a big applause to Dr. Shay as well that she is coming all the way from US just to deliver us, share her knowledge and to talk with us in a casual way. So don't feel it. It's a classroom environment. Okay. Again, I'm saying that don't consider this a formal lecture. Consider this informally. Ask any question you have with Dr. Shay. Use chat box at the right hand side of your screen, and our team will be assisting you. So, without further ado, I will hand over the session back to our moderator for this section, Dr. Nadia. She will be moderating this, and further welcome Dr. Shay, and we will hear then Dr. Shay. Over to you, Dr. Nadia.
Thank you, Dr. Harun, for the wonderful welcoming speech. Yes, I agree with Dr. Harun. Dr. Shay has she's here at 2 a.m., so everyone should take advantage of this. Now, I would like to introduce Dr. Shay Bahramirad to the audience. Dr. Shay is the Vice President of Climate and Resilience at Quanta Technology. She is responsible for assisting cities and utilities with climate change risk assessments for their assets, operations, services, for developing mitigation strategies and investment strategies for adapting to climate change. Dr. Bahramirad is an editorial board member of the Electricity Journal, an adjunct professor at the Illinois Institute of Technology, and the IEEE Power and Energy Society Vice President of New Initiatives and Outreach. She is the contributor to the United Nations SG7 for affordable and clean energy. She's the expert here. I'm really looking forward to hear what Dr. Shay has to say about sustainable energy, the green energy, and our future energy. Let's power the planet with sustainable energy. Dr. Shay, the stage is all yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nadia and Dr. Harun, for having me. I greatly appreciate that. And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shay Bahramirad, and greetings from Chicago. As you heard, it's 2 o'clock in the morning here, but I'm very much looking forward to having an interactive conversation with you and hoping that you treat this dialogue as a way to connect and see how you can help power and energy society and we power the planet together. Let me share my screen. As you heard, I am the Vice President of Climate and Resilience at Quanta Technology. I'm also an adjunct professor at Illinois Tech. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, Dr.
Yep,
Oh,
yes, Dr.
very
Shay.
good. Very good. Thank you. I appreciate the feedback. What I want to talk about is how we can power the planet together as members of, first of all, as engineers, and second, as members of Power and Energy Society. It's a It's an understatement to say that electricity is the enabler of critical infrastructure as and essential services in the society. In right now, in today's society, electricity is in the middle of the a lot of parts and pieces of important lifelines, such as water, shelter, transportation, as well as health and food and different types of services. And access to electricity is one of the key for economic growth and um, alleviating poverty in many different parts around the world. So you heard that I contribute to Smart Goal 7 in a United Nation, and that's the United Nation work goal that looks into develop in providing electricity, affordable and sustainable electricity. The Smart Goal 7, the first section of it, is saying that by 2030, making sure that there is universal access to affordable and reliable and modern energy services. The report also tracks the fact that over 650 million people, basically 8% of the global population, will lack access to electricity in 2030. So it's a I would say that it's a mind blowing number that the total population without electricity dropped from 1.2 billion in 2010 to 759 million in 2019. It's still, the numbers are extremely high, and it shows that what we can do and the impact of what we can do in the world, as engineers. That trend has slowed down in terms of providing electricity to a lot of sub-Saharan Africa, majority of the population of the world, that they don't have access to reliable electricity. They are, and you see that there are parts of the sub-Saharan Africa that they have zero access to electricity. They and 70%, 75% of the population don't have they live without access to electricity. So the problem and the opportunity, I'm an optimist in heart, and every time we talk about there's a problem, I see it as an opportunity for us to contribute to it. I think it's a lifetime opportunity to think about how we can solve societal problems. Communities, especially in rural area, lack of connecting to a central grid in as you saw in many parts of the world is a big issue that impacts health and environmental issues. How can we, so now going back to the fact that us as engineers and us in power and energy society can enable and can solve this solution. The best way to create localized power, mainly by sustainable energy, is through microgrids, rooftop solar, and community solar. Rooftop solar, there are new technologies that the weight of the solar panel is very light, and it's very, I mean, the weight is very low, so it can be utilized in parts of the world that the housing, they don't have a very strong infrastructure. And it's in the areas that the population density is low and basically they are rural, microgrid is a very good way to solve the problem. In Chicago, I worked in one of the first in the first cluster microgrid in the United States. The microgrid was installed for 7 megawatts of load, and we provided distributed control and distributed generation for 1,100 residential as well as commercial and industrial customers. We developed a microgrid controller, and we contributed significantly to IEEE 2030.7, the standard for microgrid controller. Why did I mention that? Because a lot of things that we do in engineering school, if you are a professor, if you are a graduate student, or if you're working in industry, many of the projects that we are working related to new technologies, related to distributed electricity, related to sustainable energy, the learning associated with them can get transferred to these part of the world that they don't have access to electricity. We can contribute significantly to education of local entrepreneurs and local engineers, and helping organizations such as United Nations to power the planet. According to the World Bank, microgrids are a more viable solution for remote areas with high population density and demand compared with the um, central grid and solar home system. Compared to standalone system, microgrid can also provide enhanced flexibility due to combination of different resources and different types of technologies. This is, if you are not aware of it, they are humanitarian activities at Power and Energy Society that we work with in parts of the world that they don't have access to electricity. You heard that from Dr. Harun, that I serve as the vice president of new initiative and outreach. My responsibility, one of the responsibilities that I have on the board, is to provide sponsorship to Smart Village. Smart Village is an initiative that looks into providing electricity and installing microgrid and solar and different types of sustainable energy in parts of the world that they don't have electricity. If you have a knack, or if you have a desire to be part of this philanthropy, feel free to send me a note, and I would love to connect you with the team. The distributed renewable solution has different benefits that provides not only by providing electricity, but to improving lives of people in that local area. First of all, it creates local job for people who install it, to people who go through education. One thing I should mention is that one of the goals of Smart Village and what we do at PES is to enable women entrepreneurs. We have worked in number of projects in Ghana, in Kenya, and in other parts of the world to provide mentorship and enable women entrepreneurs. The reason is that there are studies that they show that 75% of the money that gets in spent by women entrepreneurs, it stays in the community. The second thing is that the cost associated with solar and different types of technologies such as energy storage has been going down. The third thing is that the installation of such technologies provides health and community benefits, and it provides the flexibility that I mentioned, as well as improving additional critical services. So what we do at PES, we develop standards. You heard about 2030.7 and 2030.8. These are the two standards associated with a microgrid controller. At PES, we have we have developed 1547, in my opinion, one of the most important standards of our time, that is about the integration of distributed energy resources to the system and how to ensure that this installation happens in a safe manner. So we bring the technical expertise. We are a body of 42,000 members globally. The energy of and the enthusiasm and the expertise and the background of 42,000 experts around the globe, it's something that that definitely can make a significant impact. The other parts that PES can contribute is that a collaboration with organizations such as World Bank and the United Nations to provide that technical perspective. And then lastly, we have educational packages. The VP of Education is in charge of developing educational packages and trainings for the people that they work in these areas. So you see, as a society, as a professional society, there's a significant role that we can play in powering the planet. Let's look at how the World Bank is looking into utilizing technologies and distributed technologies such as microgrid to power the planet. World Bank defines a third generation microgrid as a microgrid that consists of solar panel, batteries, and charge controllers, inverters, and backup generator, and often smart meter and remote monitoring system. According to their 2019 analysis, their third generation microgrid can connect up to 490 million people, complementing grid extension and solar home system to reach a universal electrification by 2030. If you think about powering 490 million people in around the world that they don't have access to electricity, by providing the expertise of all the parts and pieces associated with this system that Power and Energy Society and the members and many of you are experts in this area, it's something that makes it worth to connect with you at 2 o'clock in the morning and talk about it. The cause is very close to my heart. I was born and raised in Iran, and I grew up during the war, and there were a lot of time that the access to electricity was very choppy, and it's something that if we work together, we can make it happen. You heard that I am a VP of Climate and Resilience with Quanta technology, and also there in what's important is that in the wake of climate change, distributed renewable solutions have both climate mitigation and adaptation benefit. Mitigation to climate change is the proactive measures and actions that we can take in order to slow down the impact of climate change. We cannot completely eliminate it. However, we can mitigate by decarbonizing the grid and decarbonizing the society. On the other hand, another part of a climate plan is resilience. And what it says is that with the decisions that we have made as society, we have created a global problem that's a climate crisis that manifests itself differently locally in different local areas. And in order for us to adapt to that, we need to develop a grid that is resilient. And for both solutions, the distributed renewable provides both benefits of associated with climate change. One is the decarbonizing the grid and decarbonizing the society, as well as improving resilience. So what is needed for us to power the planet? First of all, eliminating the affordability barrier and upfront cost. How can we do that? Participating in different World Bank, in United Nations, and many different global organizations that they have a similar goal to us. The second one is community engagement. In order to make a sustainable change, the best way to do that is to engage community, and education on cost and benefit of distributed solar, either rooftop or community microgrid. And then working very closely with policymakers and decision makers, either at the federal level, at different government bodies that they provide support or financing for these type of projects. The next thing is to establish the necessary regulatory framework that supports the humanitarian activities. And then providing local technician training and workforce development. It's something that we engineers and the PES volunteers can definitely provide that. And following industry accepted technical standards, I gave you at least 2 examples of them, but that list is very long, that making sure that the integration of these technologies happen in a safe and reliable manner. These are a number of examples that of deployment of and initiatives in parts of the world that they didn't have access to electricity, and to some extent, PES has been involved in. One of them is a grid-connected microgrid in Abuja in Nigeria, with connecting 2,100 shops, which is about 1 megawatt of load. It's an combination of solar plus storage, and serving a 40 kW pilot that started in 2019. The other one is Power Africa, Beyond the Grid initiative, focusing exclusively on unlocking investments and growth for off-grid energy solution in Africa. The initiative objective is to enable 25 to 30 million new off-grid energy connections by 2030, prioritizing households by solar and microgrids. And Power Africa awarded about $1.2 million in grant to different developers for microgrid installation in Madagascar in 2020, with anticipated access to 5,200 homes and businesses. I spend a lot of time these days in Puerto Rico. After 2 hurricanes and earthquake, there were a number of people that they didn't have access to electricity for 10 months. As part of that work, we worked very closely, and I've been helping them to set up their planning departments, distribution and transmission, looking into how different type of renewable energy and energy storage can connect to the system, as well as developing guidelines for and minimum technical requirements for virtual power plants. As part of that work, I work very closely with U.S. Department of Energy and National Renewable Energy Lab. One report that has been published by National Renewable Energy Lab, which is very relevant to what we are talking today, is evaluating the trade-off between centralized and decentralized microgrid approach in sub-Saharan Africa. It's multi-village microgrid versus separate microgrid for each locality versus multiple smart system distributed within communities, and tariff considerations for each one of those microgrids. So one thing I wanted to talk about is that I talked about 1.2 billion people not having access to electricity, but there are a lot of synergies between electricity and other types of other industries that they can, in addition to providing electricity, reduce global emission. One of them is shipping industry, which is responsible for 3% of annual global emission. The other thing is a transition to zero carbon fuel will create new opportunities for developing countries, especially those without abundant renewable energy resources. Cooking, it's a health and climate impact of using coal in cooking, and 2020 data shows that 2.8 billion people across the globe did not have access to clean cooking. This is another initiative that is very active in World Bank, and I would encourage you to take a look at it. It's one of the responsibilities that I have at PES, is that to look into partnerships outside of PES to create an environment that our expertise and our collective experience and diverse background can solve a lot of societal problems, such as reducing carbon footprint or powering the planet. If any of you in the audience is interested in getting engaged in these humanitarian activities, feel free to reach out to me. I will put my email in the chat box as well as my number, so you know that you have access to me anytime that you would like to learn more about these initiatives. The other thing that I do at PES is that we started our industry technical industry technical leadership committee and task force. It's a committee that looks into the hot topics in industry, for instance, and then that's something that under my leadership it was developed. And last year we developed a number of white papers. One of them was impact of COVID-19. You can find the white papers in the resource center. The other thing that we worked was developing white paper that explains the definition of resilience, methods and tools to improve resilience in electric power sector. That's something that is very much needed because of the impact of climate change. And then lastly, what we are working on, a team of experts from around the world, they are working on developing a white paper the titled The Impact of Climate Change and the Impact of Grid Modernization on Adapting to Climate Change. So these are the few things that is going on under my leadership at PES. In addition to that, I am the founder of Power and Energy Society, Women in Power, and it's the cause is very close to my heart, and I would very much encourage you to get engaged in the local area as well as with the with PES in Women in Power. I would finish the call, but my talk with mentioning that right now the election of Power and Energy Society is going on. It's the first time that 3 women are running. It's something to celebrate. At the same time, I'm running for the PES president-elect in addition to 2 other people. I very much encourage you to spend the time, listen to the speeches, and read about the different candidates, and take the time and cast your vote. It's a very important time in our industry. It's a very important time for us to be engaged and provide the technical leadership that is required to reduce the carbon footprint, to mitigate the impact of climate crisis, and to power the planet. Again, thank you very much for having me, Dr. Harun and Dr. Nadia. And I would love to answer any questions that you might have for me.
Thank you, Dr. Shay. That was really, really good. I totally agree that community engagement is the first step to, getting started with sustainable energy, because from this talk alone, I immediately know, okay, there's a smart village and we need zero carbon fuel. So that is new to me because I'm not from this field specifically. So does the participants have any questions? We are free for questions. Please come at us with questions. Dr. Shay, do you mind sharing your email address?
Oh, of course. Let me share my email address. And I put here my phone number too, and you can connect via WhatsApp. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Shay.
Of course.
Please take the opportunity to connect with Dr. Shay on this. If you are interested to volunteer in any offer, specialty or projects, please do reach out to her. Do we have questions? Yes. Okay. So we have a question from Zahran Hitayatullah, sorry. To reduce the lack of electricity crisis all around the world, how is IEEE Power and Energy Society contributing to overcome this issue? Dr. Shay.
So I talked about the fact that 1.2 billion people around the world don't have access to reliable electricity. PES, we have been partnering with United Nations to help them, as well as the providing expertise to the World Bank, helping them to shape their vision and providing the technical expertise. The second thing I can think of is, as part of Smart Village, we provide different grants and financial support for different types of projects around the world. There Another thing that at PES we do is we do education, local education of women entrepreneurs. We provide mentorship through Women in Power, and we do the technical trainings from PES. We take the standards that they are developed as well as the lessons learned that we have gained from working in emerging technologies such as solar, microgrids, distributed control into different parts of the world when they go through the installation of these projects.
So would you say that it's not a one-off project, meaning to say that there is a continuation from each project that you initiate, right?
Yes,
Or do you
this
provide?
initiative that I mentioned, Smart Village, that's an excellent point, Nadia. It's it has started at PES. At least I've been engaged with it for the past 6 years. And even before I got engaged, that has been going on. Because of that, I traveled to Ghana and South Africa and had conversations with local people. Um, it's something that is going on. And if there is anything that you are, I mean, if it's something that you are passionate about and you would like to get engaged, raise your hand and be part of it.
Okay, thank you. Next question, please. From Jannatul, how can we implement or deploy smart grids in the developing countries? Or microgrids are a good solution for countries like this in terms of cost consideration and current trends? Dr. Shay.
This is an excellent question. So before Quanta, I was the vice president of engineering and smart grid at ComEd, Commonwealth Edison. It's the electric utility in Chicagoland that provide electricity to 75% of the state population, including city of Chicago. And my responsibility was looking into emerging technologies and leading a team of 500 people for adoption of different types of technologies and looking into their impact into the system. One of them, I mentioned that I championed the first cluster microgrid in the United States. The project was about connecting a campus microgrid at Illinois Tech, where I'm a professor, to a medium voltage side of utility on microgrid. And I talked about that the microgrid was about powering 1,100 customers. What it was, and your question goes back that how do we develop smart grid and if microgrid is a solution with a lot of issues that we are dealing with associated with climate change. We need to improve the resilience of the system. One of the technological solution is to take the to centralize control and decision making into local area, creating a generation in a local area and distribute it in the local area. What the importance of doing that is that during catastrophic events, that local area can be stand on its own and go on an islanded mode. And what we worked on was that there are behind the meter there are behind the meter resources. It can be a microgrid. In this case, in Chicago, it was a 8 megawatt of a microgrid from a campus, connecting them with the utility side, and during catastrophic events, making these two microgrids share resources and talk to each other. We developed a hierarchy of control that has 3 layers of primary, secondary, and tertiary, with operation of 60 cycle to minutes on the economic dispatch, and making sure that this resource sharing is going to happen and prioritizing load and generation. Does it have a place, microgrid, for improving resilience in developing world? The answer, in my opinion, is absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Shay. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Okay, from Faiz Omar, dear Dr. Shay, was it easy to enter all locations to provide these facilities? What are the challenges that you faced?
Phase, the answer is no. It's not. There are regulatory barriers, there are cultural barriers, and it takes a lot of time to, and it's very important to take the time to provide that education. And that's something that we are very good at it at Power and Energy Society. There are a lot of professors and a lot of people from academia that they rolled their sleeves up and provided those educational packages. The other thing is the financing associated with these projects. It's not easy, and that's something that we have to work. We had to work quite a lot to put together the business cases and the justification associated with those projects to get the funding that is needed in order to uh, power lives in those local areas.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Shane. Next question from the audience. From Nari, is it a good idea? It is a good idea and effort, Dr. Shea, but how do we protect the expensive electrical equipment after installation? Any security measures suggested?
Yeah, so there are security measures, both physical and cyber security guidelines that at PES and different in US Department of Energy and other places that you can find. So I definitely acknowledge the fact that there is a need for both cyber and physical security of a combination of assets as well as the systems. The other thing that I would mention is that the local education, I go back but over and over again to the local education, that the community engagement and explaining the fact that the importance of electricity and how it improves everyone's lives, it's something that creates a natural improvement in security and support of the installed system in those areas.
Okay. Next question from the audience. Do we have more? Oh, there's a lot. Bunjak, hi, Dr. Shea. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. What do you think about the prospect of solar PV? Is e-waste something that we need to be worried about?
It's a so the cost of electricity, the cost of solar has been going down significantly. There are a lot of policies from around the world that enable or provide incentives for people to install renewable energy for good reasons, to reducing carbon footprint, to mitigating the impact of climate change, and providing resilience and reliability improvement at local areas. Um, and I see that trend to improve significantly. There was I participated in a panel session recently, and an organization in Europe that they look into the trend of adoption of solar. They reported that in 2020, even considering COVID-19, the adoption, that like solar still had a significant growth in many parts of the world, including China and many parts and pieces of the world. In Illinois, we just passed a legislation to provide and enable market for solar. The same way in California and other places in United States. I can go around the world, and from all the places that at least I have been talking to and working with, saying that there are policies and there are plans to increase the amount of solar in the system for very many different reasons. Now you asked a very interesting question, and it's that the e-waste, or I would say that electronic waste, are these are it's a very it's a problem that there's a it's a laundry list of chemicals that are harmful to people and environment, like mercury, like um, 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 cadmium, and many types of chemical components that they're not good for people, and they're not good for environment. There is a there are significant efforts are needed in order to put plans in place to make sure that these waste, they get recycled, and they get properly back into the environment ecosystem. Like everything else in life, there is a benefit as well as there is a side effect associated with these types of technologies. When I make a comparison of solar with consideration of e-waste, that definitely as a technical society, as a society, as human, um, we need to take actions to make sure they properly get recycled. But when comparing solar with other types of generation, such as diesel, coal, that they have significant carbon footprint, I would say that still solar makes the cut for one of the most prominent types of generation, to improve sustainability as well as reducing carbon footprint and mitigating and adapting to climate change impacts.
Well, I agree with Dr. Shay that reducing e-waste actually starts with us, right?
Yes,
We have to
every single
recycle
one
it
of us.
Yes. So next question from the audience. How the solution for energy crisis in countries where wars and restlessness always happen continuously can be implemented? Oh, okay, that's a very interesting question.
It's a very interesting question, Zahran. I told you that I'm coming from Iran, and I grew up during war in Iran. It was a time that many power plants were getting bombed, and the substations were getting attacked and by missiles and these kind of things that I hope nobody ever sees it. And it's a unfortunate situation that exists in many parts of the world, but that doesn't mean that we have to give up. There are different ways to replace those assets and replace those systems by renewable energy in a cost effective way, to make sure that there is equitable access to electricity for everybody in all communities. You
Yes.
know, inshallah, there will be a day that there will be no war in this world. In this world, again, I'm an optimist in heart, and I hope that we get to see that day.
Inshallah. Next question from the audience. Good day, Dr. Shay. My question is, in your opinion, how does IR 4.0 contribute to sustainable energy?
Um, so there are many different ways that when we think about industrial revolution, first of all, I'm a historical geek. If you look at and I read a lot about history, mainly political history or industrial revolution, that the transition to a new manufacturing process in Europe and the United States in 1760s and later in 1820 and 1840, it was the time that uh, the first machines and the first manufacturing was created. Then we fast forwarded to the time that that it m- um, that the manufacturing of goods moved from small shops and homes to large factories. So if you think about it, the because of economy of scale, that it started as distributed, and then because of economy of scale, it became centralized. Just the same as the other way around um, of electricity sector. Because of a new economy, what Edison and Westinghouse they created, the first microgrid in New York, it turned into centralized generation and transmission line, for because of economy of scale. Now, because of new challenges, we are going back to distributed solutions and distributed uh, generation. So now going back to what you asked related to industrial revolution and 4.0, what I would love to hear from you is that um, ha- uh, the technological um, advances it associated with the data, and that's something that it's a new area for Power and Energy Society, Amir, to get into. There are a number of data related working groups that, as part of Power and Energy Society, they technical council, that you can be part of it. Why intelligent industry and how it can contribute to what I talked about related to um, reducing carbon footprint or by powering planet, is that the next stages of digital transformation and utilizing and collecting the data from equipment such as um, interrupters and distribution automation and distribution control, and utilizing them in by artificial intelligence and game theory and these type of analytics. These are all the solutions that can be utilized as part of this um, process. Building a more intelligent grid is something that in Chicago I worked on it. We worked on developing a business case for a communication network, which was fiber, to collect data and provide the proper latency for sensors such as distributed phasor measurement units, and developing a distribution state estimation to, and in a mathematical way looking into where in the system we have to install sensors, and what type of sensors to, and what type of data we have to collect in order to create a distribution state estimation. I kind of talked quite a lot to get to the point that the future of our industry is intelligent, and it goes back to the data collected from our industry and utilizing it in a proper way.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Shay. Next question from the audience. Do we have more? Question from Fakurazi Matar. Question: what is the most economical solution for microgrid in terms of power source and energy storage solutions?
So let me take a step back. There is a there is a component of community impact, that when we put together business cases for new technologies, it's not quite common to look into it. When we talk about the impact of climate change and climate crisis into energy insecurity, the fact that climate change doesn't impact everybody evenly. People from or communities from lower socioeconomical, they get affected by impact of climate change harder. The areas that the temperature because of climate change is going to go high up, the areas that they are in a flooding zone, areas that they see earthquake more and more often because of climate change, the communities in with the lower socioeconomical, they get impacted harder. So what we can do is to integrate the community impact into our decision making process, and considering also the cost of carbon. When we consider both of those, the societal impact as well as the cost of carbon into equation, it's going to be making sure that all value chain of technologies such as microgrid is taken into consideration. The other way that I can say that in order to have economical solutions in microgrid that we worked on in Chicago was um, to develop um, to operate a solar plus storage as dispatchable generation in an optimal way. We developed algorithms and the project was funded by U.S. Department of Energy to $4.5 million to install the solar plus storage. And a part of the microgrid controller was to operate solar plus storage at the time of the day that in an optimum way that the cost of energy is lower. The solar was installed in 17 public housing buildings that provide benefit to local residents of those areas as well.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Shay. Are you good to take more questions, or
Sure, of course.
because it's almost 3? I mean,
No, it's all good. I'd be happy to answer any
okay.
questions.
Next question: what are the limitations of renewable energy, Dr. Shay?
The fact, the intermittency of renewable energy. So solar is it's there are days that there's it's cloudy, or in wind turbine there are days that wind is not available, and you want to, when you flip the switch, for electricity to be there when we need it, not when the renewable sources are available. The operational challenges associated with renewable energy and the impact that they have in the grid, that's something that needs to be studied and make sure that as part of interconnection they get mitigated. They different types of renewable energy, they have different impact in the grid. For solar, it increases voltage, and historically the equipments that we have, it's because of low voltages. So cap banks, we have the state of the art of capacitor banks that they are used for increasing voltage, and there are inverters that they are way more expensive, that they need to be used in order to regulate voltage and keep them within the standards. Power electronics, they introduce harmonics and super harmonics to the system. That's something that needs to get mitigated. But these are everything that I mentioned, it's solvable. It only takes time for engineers to look into the impact and mitigate them as part of interconnecting them to the larger grid.
Yes, agree. Thank you, Dr. Shay, for that answer. Next question from the audience, please. Hi, Dr. Shay. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. What do you think about the prospect of solar PV? Oh, this
I
is
think you answered that.
the same answer. Yeah, the same question. Doctor, do you think for achieving the targets to mitigate climate change, its most potential solution to work on rooftop projects or large-scale PV projects?
I would say both. The cost of integrating larger scale PV to the grid and operating it is less than rooftop solar. However, we have to consider both solutions. And that's something that in Puerto Rico we are looking into it right now. It's an optimization problem. We want to reduce the carbon footprint. We want to provide localized electricity. What's the right this solar rooftop versus community solar or large scale solar? That's something that needs to be studied for any system in more detail. That's one. Second is that not everybody has access to roof. People live in high rises and in buildings that they don't have a roof, or people live in old buildings that necessarily the structure of their house would support the installation of solar. In those circumstances, or people that they don't have access to the capital investments to go and install solar. So in those cases, having a larger scale solar PV projects, first of all, in a larger way, it's going to provide the benefit for everybody, not only the ones that they can afford it and they have access to it.
Yes, agree. Thank you, Dr. Shay, for that. Next question. We have so many, Dr. Shay. You're so famous today. We are mesmerized about your knowledge. Thank you. What do we do, or what could we do in our daily lives to save energy?
Oh, there are lots of energy efficiency programs. There are two sides of the meter. One on the household side, decisions that we can make, for increasing energy efficiency, such as utilizing LED lights, retrofitting refrigerators to energy efficient refrigerators. If you're using electric vehicle, or running your appliances the time of the day that there is no need for peakers. Peakers, majority of the time, um, they are the type of generation that they have higher carbon footprint, and running it at the time of off peak, the dishwasher, a washer, and dryer, or charging your car if you're if you're driving an electric car, utilizing the more energy efficient windows and doors. If you're living in a cold area, or you're living in a very hot area, these are the ways um, to conserve energy, and reducing the need for air conditioners and heating. The other thing that I would say is that on the grid side of the meter, there are technologies that, such as CVR and voltage optimization, that reduce the energy across mainly residential feeders. I sponsored the largest energy efficiency program on the grid. It was $575 million in Chicagoland, to reduce the energy by 2% across our over 55% of our feeders in Illinois.
Wow. So I think we already at 1 hour of our webinar. Can we have like two more questions, please?
Of course.
Okay. Is it possible to reduce energy consumption without affecting human well-being?
It's a very interesting question, Mohammed. It's a human well-being. Sometimes it's a relative question. It's a relative term. When we say human well-being, if we in the US, during summer, when you go to a movie theater or to universities, and set the temperature so low that you need to wear a jacket. For those of you who have studied or who have lived in the US, you know what I mean. During the winter, in cold areas, the temperature is so high, like they put it at 80 degrees, that you have to have layers in order to take them off and not to be too hot. So does that really go back to human well-being? I really don't think so. There is energy associated with these coolings and heating. Is it something that can be regulated, in a sense that, and majority of it's cultural. I've lived in Sweden as well. I've lived in 3 continents. That's the places that I've lived, number of houses that for years I lived in Sweden, we didn't have air conditioners. And nobody put their temperature of their homes by 85 degrees, or in winter. The same way in Iran. But what I'm trying to say is that human well-being is a relative term. Part of it is culturally. Part of it is the fact that education is needed in order for people to understand that every single decision that they make, there's a societal cost associated with that. Running your dishwasher, or washing your clothes, or setting it up to run at off peak hour in the middle of the night, is going to reduce the need for dispatchable generations and peaker. Does it affect human well-being? I really don't think so.
Thank you, Dr. Shay. Last question, please. This is going to be the last question. Okay. Can you please tell me, is the LCOE a fair way to compare different renewable systems like PV and wind? Any other economical parameter considered more authentic than LCOE to compare the technologies?
So I would say I don't think LCOE is inclusive enough to measure the benefits of that renewable energy provides. The capital cost times the recovery and consideration of O&M divided by 8760, and the cost of fuel and heat rate and variable O&M. These are all the components and parts and pieces that we calculate LCOE. The part that we do not consider in LCOE is the societal impact and the community impact. If we incorporate that into the decision-making equation, then I would say that the true benefit of renewable energy is going to be higher. So it's a great foundation, LCOE, to start looking into the cost associated or levelized cost of energy. But is it inclusive enough? I don't really think so. It's something that as an industry we are not very much used to including human factor into our studies and into our investment planning decision making, and that's something that is very, very much needed. I think it's the next evolution of what we do, impacting, incorporating the human factor, the impact in communities and the impact in local area. That's something that is very much needed.
Yes, I agree with Dr. Shi. Actually, we created technology to serve humans, but it seems like human well-being is put at the back, So now that everything is happening, we are reconsidering technology. Hey, technology is supposed to make our lives better, so we need to rethink about this. So thank you so much, Dr. Shay, for answering so many questions. The audience is so excited about sustainable energy. It has given me a new perspective on smart village, sustainable energy. I'm looking forward to reducing waste, reducing e-waste, and saving more energy. And I hope I can be part of this engagement soon, inshallah. So we are now at the end of our webinar, a very engaging webinar. Thank you so much to Dr. Shay for her invaluable insights on sustainable energy. Thank you to the audience for staying with us and engaging with us on this valuable topic. Please give a follow to IEEE Young Professionals Malaysia on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Telegram, LinkedIn, Clubhouse. Just type in IEEE YP Malaysia. We have so many platforms. Do share pictures that you have taken from this webinar and tag us on your social media accounts. Thank you all for sparing your valuable time. See you again in future events, inshallah. This is Dr. Nadia signing off. Have a great rest of the day or rest of the night. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you, Dr. Nadia. Greatly appreciate it. Inshallah, one day I get to meet you in person.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, inshallah.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good night.
Thanks.